子供はダメなの？ゲームにネットとかいろんな誘惑がある。
Understatement of the millennium. We open this week with Hisui practicing her magic, and yes, I'm making air quotes while saying this, as Papa Mirai was actually doing all the work. Understandably, she wanted to switch out with Liko, but of course she was on her phone. It's sad when this is one of the most realistic depictions of the current modern family. Though, to be fair, she was looking up important stuff about Isle, which led to them figuring that they should look into Mirai's vision from the previous episode, which you kind of think they should have done by now. However, that was sidetracked by their resident Dadaru taking her phone. Not too surprisingly, considering where she was raised, Liko had some more conservative views about kids having smartphones, as for her, it was basically like a forbidden magic, which she was partially right, but come on, that's what parental blocks are for. Then again, she also might have wanted to keep her out of her Photos app. I think I totally look more like this other girl. But that's a little alien, you know. Don't be a racist, Liko. But yeah, it also nicely tied in with the little plot detail that this phone was technically Mirai's, as it shared her photo gallery, as well as her notification settings, as they received another Mahotsukai request. Thus, they really did end up putting the owl stuff aside for now, which, to be fair with all of this time travel stuff, it actually might be better to not fulfill any sort of prophecies to some bootstrap paradoxes or the like. Moreover, they did have some more immediate threats to worry about.
なんでも。よし、警察。わかった。
Anyway, someone was asking them to find their cat because I guess that other show just wrapped up to be replaced by the idols. Though speaking of which, Hisui wanted to help by using her magic to talk to a cat.
Read your beeping machine.
But yeah, their search was turning up empty, which frustrated Hisui, who wanted to one-up her older sister, who also might be like her biological mother in a way. It's anime, so you don't have to question this stuff. I said no questions! And I think Mirai felt the same way, as before I could even make a joke about her looking like a cosplayer returning from comic market, this show did it for me. Yeah, I'll say right now, this episode has some pretty good comedy that actually takes advantage of the fact that our heroines are now young adults who are still playing with their magic wands. Granted, I also did like the return of a classic when Katsuki saw her old friend. Don't worry, girl. I'm sure Kizna Blue will hear you out later. Anyway, after making, I think, a Detective Conan reference, or at least something transformative enough to avoid copyright infringement, Mirai came up with a plan to find the cat. She had Liko make a trip to the supermarket, because again, this girl is not a true cosplayer, to buy some cat food and some snacks for Hisui. Well, I hope she at least shares some with Shoma later. He's gonna need some comfort food this week. But yeah, her plan was to lure out the cat with the food in an empty park that didn't allow them to feed cats. Wah, wah, wah. Though, while the adults were a little frustrated that their search was going nowhere, Hisui was really frustrated, though more because, again, there was that legit feeling that she wasn't living up to the admiration that they had for their first Dadaru. But then that point got sidetracked by the earlier creeper. Yeah, this episode is a tad bit unfocused, but don't worry, it is leading to something, as Liko busted their stalker.
見つかったか。
お父様。
Yes, he has a monocle and a beard that I'm pretty sure qualifies as a lethal weapon. But yeah, he had come to the no magic world to watch over his daughter and the likely dangerous mission that she had accepted. Obviously, Liko argued that she didn't need her dad to watch over her now that she was of age, but of course he gave her the standard the parents will always worry about their kids speech. Which, yeah, I personally don't totally melt with, as I do think independence from the parents is important for an offspring's development, but I also do recognize that it's important for this particular episode. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of how bratty Hisui has been over the past couple of episodes because I do think it's kind of been overdone, but I do appreciate that there is a solid narrative reason here in bringing up when and if ever a child should become independent from their parents and how both sides do need to recognize such. In Hisui's case, she objectively still needed parental guidance, both due to her immaturity and the fact that these guys were around.
そんなに走ると危ないよ。
Yeah, it's me again. Mirai had Hisui escape with a cloak of invisibility, whilst Io made them invisible to everyone, except for Katsuki for a second.
本当にいたの？
本当に懐かしいわ。
It was so real that you all kind of went off model there. Which, yeah, on that note, the fight this week was definitely off in some areas. I mean, on the one hand, the sustaining lights animations look pretty good and weren't stock animations that they could have easily cheaped out with. I mean, they might need to reanimate them a little since they used Pink Diamond this week, but still really good on the animators for having them actually use them during this action scene. That said, it is clear that they focus most of their sakuga on one particular scene that we'll get to in a second, leading to the Maho girls looking really off-model at times. There was also some kind of confusing storyboarding, like this little bit of them trying to avoid the monster of the week, only for it to catch up with them, I think. Yeah, it feels like there's a whole cut missing here of how it managed to catch up with them. Also, yeah, the monster of the week appeared to be a giant blanket, which makes you think it was that one from the Brave Little Toaster if it never found its master. It matches up with a certain theme in regards to eyeless monsters that we'll talk about more during the closing thoughts. Anyway, after infusing Blanky with more of Deuce Moss's never-before-seen powers, it managed to one-up the Maho girls. This resulted in Hisui revealing that she hadn't left and wanted to help even against her mother's wishes. And thankfully, this did make her realize what the exchange with Liko and her father really meant, and how much they actually cherished her, which resulted in her still trying to defend them. Well, at least her heart is in the right place, plus just from this one frame, we could already tell that Yu Yoshiyama was animating the rest of the scene. With that, Hisui finally used magic, and also had an encounter with her sister mom. As a result, she sent Blanky back to the scrapyard to be compacted, but of course this was all according to Keikaku for Isle, as the Maho girls at some time or another had already likely spoiled the plot for him. With that, and after a little support from Liko's dad to really hammer home the show's whole parenting theme, Isle retreated. And the episode ended with them finding the missing cat, and Mirai and Liko hopefully contemplating ways on how to get this kid out of her terrible twos. This episode was a little bit more about the characters and theming rather than the main plot about all the time travel stuff, which is a little bit more my preference, but I can get into this stuff as well. Again, I'm still not the biggest fan of Hisui, as she continues to mostly just be the bratty kid archetype, but I do appreciate the child-raising themes and messages of the show. Helps that this is likely going to tie in with the big bad and his many issues. So yeah, as has been kind of pointed out in the comment section of these videos, Isle's Monsters of the Week all seem to follow a specific pattern in that they're common child playthings. The first two were toys, teddy bear and Legos, the third was made of arts and crafts, and this week was a blankie. They all seem to hint that either this guy is really attached to his childhood, or maybe even more likely, is a kid in an adult body trying to get his mom back. Either way, it does seem to tie into the show's subtle, underlying theme of growing up and aging, which yeah, we've already done enough comparisons with that. But yeah, I tend to like this parenting stuff, having also reviewed another magical girl show about raising a kid. Thus, I can't actually overlook some of Hisui's brattier moments, as it does tie in with this whole theme and message of when to cut the umbilical cord. In that sense, it is being highlighted very nicely. I just hope Hisui overcomes her rebellious phase, as I'm usually not the biggest fan of how Isamu Murayama writes bratty characters. That said, I'm liking how they're building up her connection with Kotoha, and in turn, the grander connections with Mother Rapapa, and hopefully we can get a little more time travel shenanigans out of it, which is more my bread and butter. As for the fight this week, it was mostly okay, with some really off-model moments, but that Hisui climax kind of made up for it. And overall, this is a pretty solid episode. Again, I do hope that we can get back to the time travel stuff, but unlike Hisui, I guess we should be a little more patient with this sort of stuff. Thank you for watching what might be our first Precure review of this weekend. Yeah, not making any promises as I am recording this before episode 1 even airs, but we might do a full review of You and Idol Precure tomorrow. Definitely not promising that we'll do the whole series, but to celebrate Groundhog's Day, may as well do something special.
You're hypocrites, all of you.
Regardless, look forward to whatever comes next. Until then, though, for now, my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I got some cleaning up to do with all these kids' toys.